Fingerprints of the tribe of Dan on the flag of Denmark. The national flag of Denmark is called Dannebrog in Danish. It contains several clues which connect the modern Danes to the ancient Israelite tribe of Dan. The Danish flag, which I have here behind me, has been the national flag of Denmark since the 13th century probably, but at least since the 14th century. Historians have proved that it has been used as a national flag of Denmark since the 14th century, but that of course does not mean that it was not used in the 13th century. It only means that they have not proved that it was not used in the 13th century. Clue number 1. The first clue lies in the fact that the Danish flag is the oldest national flag in the entire world, which is still in use, which is still the national flag. And the biblical parallel to this lies in the fact that the name of Dan is the first of the 12 patriarchs to be mentioned in the Bible. The patriarch Jacob, whose name was turned into Israel, he had of course 12 sons. And of these 12 sons, Dan was the 5th son. But still, Dan is the first one to be mentioned by name in the Bible. Dan's birth is recorded in Genesis chapter 30, but still the name of Dan is already mentioned in Genesis chapter 14. That is in connection when Abraham is rescuing his nephew Lot, and we read in Genesis chapter 14. And when Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. Unquote. Genesis 14:14. Now Abraham, he was Dan's great-grandfather. And at the time of this event, Dan's grandfather, that is Isaac, he had not even been born yet, and still the name of Dan is already there. So what obviously has taken place is that originally some other place name must have been there, but at some point some scribe must have changed it into Dan so that the readers of the books of Moses would be able to understand what place it was referring to. But ultimately, the reason why it was changed into Dan was because God wanted it to be there so he could send a message, a clue to the readers of the Bible. Clue number 2, the origin of the flag. The second clue is the origin of the flag of Denmark. According to the myth, Dannebrog fell down from heaven during a crusade led by King Valdemar II, the victorious of Denmark, in Estonia on June the 15th, 1219, to convert the pagan Estonians to Christianity. But a more realistic version of this story is that it was a flag of the Knights Hospitaller who were part of the crusade, which somehow got hurled up into the air and landed close to the Danish king. The Knights Hospitaller, also known as the Order of the Knights of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem, or the Knights of St. John, were one of the famous Crusader orders. Their flag is red with a white cross. This flag became the basis for the flag of Denmark. When the Crusaders escorted pilgrims to and from the Holy Land, the Knights Templars would go in front because they were considered the strongest Crusader order. The Knights of St. John would go behind the pilgrims to protect them from attacks in the rear because they were considered the second strongest Crusader order. The Knights of St. John were from its very inception founded as an hospital order to take medical care of injured and dying pilgrims and crusaders. They were knights with weapons and armor as well because they would get attacked if they were not able to defend themselves. The biblical parallel to this is when Israel wandered in the wilderness after the Exodus. During the wandering in the wilderness, the 12 tribes were divided into 4 camps, which were arranged around the Ark of the Covenant, the Tabernacle, Moses, and the Levites in the middle. When Israel moved from one place to another, the first camp to move and to go in front was the camp of Judah. The last camp to move and to go in the back was the camp of Dan. We read in the book of Numbers. In the first place went the standard of the camp of the children of Judah according to their armies. And the standard of the camp of the children of Dan set forward which was the reward of all the camps throughout the hosts. Unquote. Numbers chapter 10, verses 14 and 25. According to Yair Davidi, an Orthodox Jewish author of numerous books on the lost 10 tribes of Israel, this was because Judah was considered the strongest tribe in battle and Dan was considered the second strongest. He quotes Rabbi Abraham ibn Ezra, who lived 1089 to 1164 and who lived in Muslim-occupied Spain. Quote, the commentator Rabbi Abraham ibn Ezra opined that Dan and Judah were the greatest warrior tribes. That is why when they marched forward, Judah was in the front and Dan in the rear. Ibn Ezra on Numbers 1:19. Their task was to take the brunt of the battle and to protect the rest of Israel. Unquote. From Yair Davidi's article, Dan Will Redeem. And now we get to clue number 3, the name Dan in the place of the battle. The third clue is the name of the place of the battle where the flag of Denmark originated. The place in Estonia where the battle took place was called Lyndanisse, where we again see the name of Dan. And these photos are, by the way, from when I visited Estonia in 2011, and this place is called the Garden of the King of Denmark, and is the exact place where the flag of Denmark fell down in 1219. After the Danish victory, a castle was built which was called the Danes' Castle, or in Latin, Castrum Danorum. The Estonians called the town Tallinna, which literally means Dane Castle, and today it is called Tallinn and is the capital of Estonia. The biblical parallel to this is the fact that in the Old Testament, Dan seems to have had an obsession with naming places after their forefather Dan. For example, we read in Joshua, quote, and the coast of the children of Dan went out too little for them. Therefore the children of Dan went up to fight against Lechem and took it, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and possessed it, and dwelt therein, and called Lechem Dan after the name of Dan their father. Unquote. Joshua chapter 19, verse 47. And again we read in the book of Judges, we quote, and they, that is 600 armed Danites, went up and pitched in Kiriath Jearim in Judah. Wherefore they called that place Mahane Dan unto this day. Behold, it is behind Kiriath Jearim. Unquote. Judges chapter 18, verse 12. And again in the book of Judges we read, and they, that is 600 armed Danites, called the name of the city Dan after the name of Dan their father, who was born unto Israel. Howbeit the name of the city was Laish at the first. Unquote. Judges chapter 18, verse 29. And now we come to clue number 4. The Danish flag is the inspiration of the other Nordic flags. The fourth clue is how the flag of Denmark has inspired the flags of the other Nordic nations. The difference between the flag of the Knights of St. John and the flag of Denmark is that the cross in the flag of the Knights of St. John is exactly in the middle of the red background, both in the length and in the height. On the Danish flag, the cross is in the middle in the height, but in the length the middle of the cross is closer to the hoist, or the flagpole. This kind of cross is known as a Nordic cross, a Scandinavian cross, or the cross of St. Philip. The flag of Denmark became the basis of the flags of the other Scandinavian and Nordic nations. All of the Nordic flags are based on the same ratios as the flag of Denmark, in the so-called Nordic cross. The first was the flag of Sweden in the early 16th century, and later the flags of Norway in 1821, the Swedish-Danish province of Scania in the 1870s, Finland in 1918, the Faroe Islands in 1940, Iceland in 1944, the Finnish-Swedish Åland Islands in 1954, and even the flags of the Shetland Islands and the Orkney Islands in 2005 and 2007. The latter two island groups were originally settled by Norwegians, but are now a part of the United Kingdom. The biblical parallel to this is again found in Israel's wanderings in the wilderness. When Israel wandered in the wilderness, Israel was divided into 4 camps, and one of these 4 camps was called the Camp of Dan, and it consisted of the tribes of Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. Now we associate Denmark primarily with the tribe of Dan, Norway primarily with the tribe of Naphtali, and Sweden primarily with the tribes of Asher and Gad. So what is the conclusion of all this? The conclusion is that in itself, all these clues are not proof that the Danes are descendants of the Israelite tribe of Dan, but is circumstantial proof, and along with other circumstantial proof such as history, archaeology, Bible history, Bible prophecy, DNA, linguistics, heraldry, and so forth, they are proof that the Danes, the modern Danes, are indeed descendants of the Israelite tribe of Dan.